Wow, thank you, Josh. That was really lovely. That's the best way to start a morning. Thank you, everyone. I feel really privileged and fortunate to be here with you all. I'm amazed there's so many morning people in Sydney. This is amazing. Yeah, I'm kind of almost speechless. That doesn't happen very often, so thank you very much. I feel really privileged to do what I love every single day, to meet inspiring people like a lot of the people in this room. But I'm not going to talk about any of that. So what I'm going to talk about instead is what we can do because we have that privilege and we have that luxury. So I just want to find out who in this room does what they love every day. Oh. Are you serious? Wow, that's awesome. Okay, you guys we need to work on over here. But we got something coming. Okay, so how many, I just want to see kind of who we have in the room. Who here is a visual communicator of some kind, a designer, an illustrator? All right, I got my design people, yep. Who's a techie? Who makes startups, oh, okay. All right, okay. Startups, entrepreneurs, people who are making digital media. Who here works in advertising or marketing? All right. Okay, cool. You guys all are really important in this story, so thank you. And who here works who's kind of more of an artist themselves, more of an illustrator or an artist? Okay, all right, they came in late. Okay, and who here might work in like a community sector, NGO, not-for-profit? All right, Mel over there, Nell, okay, all right, okay, some social entrepreneurs down here, some policy, government people. I see you. All right. There are a few here. Okay, fantastic. So what we all do actually is communicate with people. We actually do make change. We often don't see ourselves that way. I'm also guilty of often saying that I don't have a real job or asking people if they do something serious for a living. And, we put ourselves down as creatives, but actually, even though we often feel disempowered, we are incredibly powerful and we're incredibly empowered. I feel lucky, as I said, I feel privileged, and not everyone in the world has that privilege. Not everyone in this city has that privilege. So because we're that fortunate, I think we have a responsibility to do something with it. If you're, as the saying goes, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. And I think that's really true, even in a city as privileged and as fortunate as Sydney is. There are a lot of things to be angry about at the moment in this city. I've got a list at the end. I'll show you what I was angry about yesterday morning. But I'd love to hear what you're angry about too. And I think anger is a really important emotion. It's something that we should channel into something creative and constructive. The problem that a lot of us are experiencing at the moment, though, is that we feel really disempowered by the political process that we live in, or that we are a part of. You might look at the two major parties and think that there isn't kind of like a hair between them when it comes to kind of ethical and moral purpose. You might look at the way that activism is moving forward, and you might have gone to some meetings of activists. You might have been inspired to do that because you wanted to make change and felt frustrated by the way that people on the progressive side of politics tend to kind of sweat the small stuff and argue about the definitions and the details and the semantics and get all academic on your ass, and you're just like, I don't even know what we're talking about here, people. So, you might feel disempowered. You might even think the problem's so big, what can I do? You might think, where do I even begin? You might think, how do I pay my bills? I live in Sydney. I can't afford to be working for a not-for-profit or giving my time away. I'm here today not to berate you with a manifesto, but to hopefully give you some examples, some case studies of how creative people have and can and will change both the political process and have really meaningful social impact in their communities. And I know that we can all do that. And I want to hopefully give you a bit of a manual to go out and do that We're even going to potentially workshop one idea and develop a whole slate of campaigns that we can go out and start enacting today. So that's what's coming up next. So I took the word rebel and I'm like, I don't want to be a rebel because, to be honest, I get paid by governments and corporations, so it's a little bit hard to consider myself a total rebel. I prefer the verb rebel. And I think that's really what we're going to be talking about today. How do we rebel? How do we use the tools and the talents and the skills that we have and that we've developed and we've honed over years to actually do something creative, do something useful. More useful than even what we do normally. So creative people can change the world, and they should. And I'm going to give you some really clear examples of where that's actually happened. Because one of the things that's nice about my work is that it's often just pointing at other people's work. So I'm just going to do that now. Okay, where are my designers at? My designers and my visual communicators. Yeah, you guys, you actually make the invisible visible. You take you simplify concepts down in a way that resonate, down to images that stick in people's minds. This is a campaign that I really love from Lima, Peru. So there was, in the 80s, they started building a metro line. They built 4 stations of the metro. And then for 20 years, the kind of pylons just sat there and kind of got graffitied over and nothing happened. And then this designer, Camila Bustamante, decided that that was kind of ridiculous. So she put together a visual identity for the completion of the Lima Metro, and she worked out that at 1.8 kilometres every year, it would take until 24-27 to complete the Lima Metro. So she developed a very beautiful and sophisticated information campaign for that, and then she went around and started postering up in the different suburbs that the train line was coming to when the expected arrival date. And of course the arrival date was ridiculous. It was, and what it says up there is, for our great-grandchildren. And so the idea... So the idea there is, and this is something that we're good at. We're good at using humour. We're good at using the sophisticated language of visual communication and advertising and design to make people kind of, to give things authority, and then maybe to start to think, isn't this ridiculous? Shouldn't we do something about this? And she did this to coincide with the time when the guy who was the mayor of the city was then standing for presidential election, and so he actually got embarrassed into doing something about it. So, humour, embarrassing people, getting personal, and going out there and highlighting the ridiculousness of the situation, that's a tool for change. This is a project by Tatiana Fasilade. I was going to be more confident with that. So she's an Iranian-American designer and illustrator. She was upset about the issue of harassment on the street, which women experience, particularly women of colour experience this. It's endemic in a lot of cities in the US, but places like Egypt, it's one of the biggest problems. Women can't walk down the street without being harassed. In South America, it's also a big thing. In Sydney, men don't notice women exist, so it's fine. We don't have that problem here, right? So what she did was that she actually created these beautiful campaigns that say, women are not outside for your entertainment. My name is not baby. The campaign's called Don't Ask Me to Smile. She created the artwork, she put it online, and people have now taken that and they've printed them out and distributed them all over the world. So they're pasted up in cities all over the world. The idea there is to take something that only 50% of the population experience, and possibly even a smaller percentage than that, and make it visible so that men actually start, and the men who do this kind of thing, start to see that actually their behaviour is visible, their behaviour is seen and it's felt, and it's probably not very appropriate. All right, advertising people, marketing people, yeah, I saw you. You guys are really amazing at changing the conversation. I'm going to step out of the way. You're great at changing the conversation. You're there to tell us, to help us get a message to cut through. And some of the most remarkable campaigns in history, I think advertising and marketing people have been behind. This is a really brilliant one from Russia. This is it's from a town it's the 4th largest town in Russia, and it's called Yekaterina. And a blog named Yura which was a kind of a community blog, was so pissed off about the fact that the potholes in the road weren't being fixed that they commissioned an advertising agency to go out and come up with a solution. And the solution they came up with, again, making it personal, making it funny. This is the governor, the mayor, and the vice mayor of the town. And they went and stenciled their faces and painted their faces over the potholes. Suddenly, repair workers came out of nowhere, and first they painted over the illustrations. And then, of course, the campaign came back and said, paint is not what we're looking for. We want improvements to the roads. Now, the thing to get out of this is that it's actually really good business as a creative to do these kinds of campaigns. These guys won 4 Cannes Lions for doing this. I mean, this is not an expensive campaign. It's just a clever, cheeky, thoughtful one that uses what you have. And activists are really good at that, but I think creative people are possibly even better at that. You know, we use what we've got. Now, this campaign, well, that's like the best still image that I could find. I just love it. You know, this campaign is really personal and to me and something that I think is really significant. This is the campaign from 1988 in Chile. There was a plebiscite. There'd been 14 years of rule by Pinochet, who was a dictator. And he wanted to legitimise his rule, and he put it to a public plebiscite, to a referendum. The option was to vote yes and keep Pinochet for another 8 years of dictatorial rule, or to vote no and get rid of him. So how do you take a campaign that is about no and make it into something that's positive and uplifting? How do you give people the confidence to go against a really terrifying, powerful organ of state? I mean, he controlled the army. He was, you know, the chief commander of the army. Thousands and thousands of people were killed by Pinochet. Tens and tens of thousands had to flee the country. My mum was one of them. You know, she came here illegally and overstayed her visa, and that's why I'm here. And you know, to actually give people the confidence to vote in a way that is potentially dangerous to themselves, that is a tough thing to do. And as anyone knows who's looked into politics or worked in politics at all, getting people to vote in the kind of a negative way in a referendum is also very hard to achieve. Now, what happened in Chile was that there was 15 minutes allowed of airtime for each side. But of course, the Yes campaign had all day long with the state-controlled channels, and the No campaign only had 15 minutes. The other thing that the No campaign had to deal with, and a lot of us have to deal with this if we work in community or in progressive politics, is that the left is incredibly fractured. So in this case, they had to work with 14 parties, from the communists to the centre-left, from the Christian Democrats to the, you know, atheist socialists. You know, how do you get those people to agree on a campaign? Also, how do you create a positive message without trivialising the experience of people who've lost their family, who've been exiled, who've you know, had their lives shattered, and who live in fear from this sort of regime? So this is what they came up with. It's a pretty bad quality, but it's pretty funny. I'll kind of translate as we go. We don't have to watch the whole thing. But it's saying, Chile, happiness is coming. Because say what you say, I'm free to think. It's time to gain our liberty. Enough of abuse, it's time to change. Enough of misery. That's why I'm going to say no. Because the rainbow comes after the storm. Something changed my thinking. Because after dictatorship, happiness is coming. That's why I'm going to say no. And I love that guy. Enough with death. This is our opportunity. How do you work that into a pop song? Okay, we don't need to watch the whole thing, but it is available online for your enjoyment. I have to stop. Oh, it's just really fun. Okay. Anyway, so I know it's the best. And it's got Gael Garcia Bernal in it, and you know, and a lot of criticism has come about from that movie by the left. Actually, to be honest, that's how I found out about this campaign, is from that movie. So again, filmmakers, creative people, changing the world, because I would never. This is a story from my life, and I wouldn't have known it if not for a film like that. And there has been criticism saying that, you know, it was more than an ad campaign that changed the course of history in Chile. But it took an ad campaign, and it took marketing and creative and advertising people to unite people, to simplify the message, and to take something from being worthy and hard work and scary and turn it into something positive that people could latch onto. And that's what we are empowered to do. That's what we can do. Okay, I'm going to start speaking faster. Techies and gamers can provide tools for better society. Well, there's not that many of them in the room, so we'll just go really quickly through this one. So this is a project called Datea, and it's, this is also from Peru. This is by Camila Bustamante, who I think is now my new hero. And basically, it's a platform to turn everyone into information gatherers and data points. It's about providing the link between community and government to kind of organise and gather information. And as we know, our media is really suffering. Our media hasn't found a new way of transitioning to a new business model. We don't, and media and journalism is crucial in the whole political process in democracy. We need a free media. We need an empowered and impartial media. And this is a way of supporting that process. It's a form of citizen journalism. This is a project from Russia, from Siberia, actually. And this is, was created by a bunch of journalists. It's called, the translation is So. It's about journalists, citizens, and human rights defenders working together to document abuses and to almost provide kind of an alternative to, you know, but abuses of all kinds, like corruption, kind of shitty car repairs, you know, like just anything that isn't quite right. This is a place where people can actually voice their concerns about it. And this is Games for Change. So some of you might have heard of Games for Change. Basically, it's the idea that things that are entertaining and fun, like games, can actually be created to tell stories and send messages. I don't know if any of you guys saw that TV show, Go Back to Where You Came From, that was on SBS. They had a really excellent game that you could play with one of that, and some people stayed up and played it all night because it was really fun. It wasn't fun, it was terrible. You were a refugee in a camp, and it was, but it was really great for inspiring empathy. And so there are things like that which, you know, techies and gamers and creative people can do to inspire empathy and create social change. Phew, last one. So comic artists and illustrators can inspire social change. And this isn't new by any means. There's a really famous and amazing journalist who works in graphic novels called Joe Sacco. There was the amazing Art Spiegelman who wrote Mouse, which is about telling the story of the Holocaust using mice. You know, there have been some really incredible journalists and storytellers using this medium, but it's really having a resurgence at the moment. This is a woman named Susie Cagle. And she's from the US, and this is, it's hard to read, but basically this is one of her pieces, which is about actually documenting inequalities in San Francisco, which have arisen as a result of the tech boom there. And the way that they're here, this is about how their mayor is saying our average middle class makes about 80,000 to 150,000, which is ridiculous in America. Whereas actually the real medium household, 53% of homeless live on the street in San Francisco. If you've been to San Francisco, you know they have an insane homelessness problem. And 23.4% of residents live in poverty. But, you know, and then there's the mayor up there talking about how the dome is actually plated in gold. And so it's another way of getting those sorts of facts to come through and to make people take that information away. If you read that in an article, you probably aren't going to remember it. This is one of the most brilliant things I've seen in a really long time. This was published by the Global Mail about 2 weeks ago. Look it up. It's the story, the account of a Serco employee, so someone who works in detention centres. He related to a journalist named Nick Ollie. Nick then worked with Sam Wallman, who is a Sydney artist, to create this incredible graphic novel story about the experiences that this guy had when he was working in this system. And it actually changes the way that you remember and consume that information. It's incredibly moving stuff, and I really have to recommend that you guys go have a look at it. So, you're all like, okay, Jess, I hear you. We should all be out there changing the world and like doing spray painting campaigns and illustrating stuff. But I live in Sydney. I got to pay my bills. I don't know, you know. These up here are, you know, the excuses or the reasons why a lot of us don't get involved in this sort of stuff. We don't have the time, we don't have the money. If you work for yourself, you probably do 10 jobs, you know. We might not feel informed enough to take action about these sorts of things. We might not feel entitled to do so because we don't have the support networks and we're not connected to activists. And then down here is what I see are the problems that a lot of activist organisations have. So they don't have access to audiences, they don't have access to media space, they don't have the communication skills. I've met a lot of them. They don't have the political influence that some of us have, and they certainly don't have the fundraising skills. I mean, organisations like Get Up, I think, are an exception to the rule rather than the rule. But, you know, to use the language of guerrillas and revolution, you know, I see a whole lot of sleeper cells here, like a breakfast club of change makers in this room. And we can actually affect some change in this regard. You know, we do need to create a different dialogue and a different way of engaging between the creative community and the activist community, between the creative community and between NGOs, and between government and between government organisations as well. And I know we can do it, but what we have to do is begin that process. And we have to start to define the terms that we're going to engage on. You know, maybe one of the things that I see as being a really big problem is that we're all really disconnected from each other. When we work in places like the Hub, I think, I'm not just saying that because I'm here and I wouldn't mind getting a table now and then, but places like the Hub are really important because back in the day, people who were the oppressed used to work in factories and on farms, and they used to be united by things called trade union organisations. And trade union organisations and the labour movement are the reason why Australians can afford to be complacent about this stuff. They elevated us out of poverty and serfdom, and they were too good at their job. And that's why suddenly everybody's middle class and nobody has a sense of community anymore. We have to take that over. We have to find a new way. When we work independently, when we work creatively, we don't have unions that are going to represent us in that way. We don't have the same ways of organising. We often don't, you know, go to the pub at 6 o'clock at the end of the day and go talk about our problems and that, you know, that the floor supervisor who gave us a hard time. You know, we're all working independently. So I think community is a key form of creating change, and co-location is really important. I also think compensation is important. I also think charging money is important. I think, you know, nothing annoys me more than seeing creative people subsidising campaigns by corporations. By giving our work away for free, we undervalue what we do and we take away the time and the resources that we have to contribute to things that matter. And so I think we all need to commit to putting our prices up 20%, guys, 20%. I found out recently what people in advertising make. Yeah. So, just need a minute. So, we all need to jack this stuff up and actually start valuing what we do. The Loop actually did an excellent, yeah, that's right. They did an excellent campaign where they found out what people charge, and it's not enough, actually, in my opinion. And it's also been found, I think there was a story on Arts Hub this week, that embedded creatives, so creatives who work in other organisations in the broader economy get paid way more than creatives who work in creative studios and creative organisations and NGOs and all that sort of stuff. That's because they value what we do. They understand that we have the power to communicate, we have the power to make people feel things, and we have the power to get our points across. So we need to start valuing what we do, and we need to do what Google does and dedicate, 20% of our time, one day a week, to working on things that matter and things that are actually going to change our world that we live in. So, you're wondering, but what causes will I commit to? Here you go, guys. Here are some of the things I got real mad about yesterday. Asylum seeker rights, what's the deal? Freedom of information, what's the deal? Why do we live in this society where things are operational matters and we're not allowed to hear about things that affect our democracy, our choice? Housing affordability, anyone live in Sydney here? Anyone in Sydney? Yeah. Media diversity. Media diversity, I mean, we have 2 media organisations. We have 2 government state-funded or partially state-funded organisations, and they're under review because they're not on Australia's side. I mean, that's a problem, people. We need to do something about that. That affects all of our access to information. Sydney lockouts. What's the deal, people? Does anyone not like going out here? I do. We need to do something about that. Mental health actually is one of the leading causes of death in the developed world. I mean, this is a serious epidemic, and we need to address it. And I also think social isolation and exclusion are one of the leading causes of that, and we can actually do something about it. Shark culling. Yeah. That's bullshit. Copyright reform. Does everybody know that the Australian Law Reform Commission is doing a reform of copyright at the moment, which is probably going to affect everyone in this room? Yeah, no, because we're all too busy working and giving our stuff away for free. So we need to do something about that. Violence against women. So you're more likely to be killed by someone you know if you're a woman. You're more likely to experience violence if you're a woman. That's not good enough. We can do something about that. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole list because I'm already getting pretty wound up. There's also a bunch of things I forgot to put on this list that occurred to me recently. So if you still want to know what else I'm angry about, come and have a chat. The thing is, these are not just things to be angry about. There are also a lot of causes for us to support on this list. Like investment in renewables, supporting biodiversity, supporting rights, all of those sorts of things that are actually positive campaigns that we can run. So now you're all geared up and you're like, but what campaign will I focus my energy on? I've got one I prepared earlier. So this is a campaign which launched today, and I found out thanks to Nell Schofield, who's here. It's a campaign called Our Land, Our Water, Our Future. So you guys, we've been running off, a lot of our economy has been kind of subsidised, we think, by the minerals, oil and gas in particular industry. A lot of us have seen that movie Gasland. Anyone seen that movie Gasland in this room? Yep. Oh my God, people, seriously. Yeah, all right. Okay, so this is a movie, this is a documentary about fracking. You guys heard of fracking? All right, so this is fracturing where they actually drive drills down into the earth and they put a bunch of chemicals, but we can't know what the chemicals are because that's commercial in confidence. And they put those and then that's to help extract the natural gas up. Of course, that goes into waterways, but you don't need to know about that. That's fine. So this is something that is happening in Australia. It's happening right now. One of the things that you don't realise and that many of us don't know is that actually 82% of New South Wales is currently covered by mining and gas exploration licences. So there's a campaign called Lock the Gate, because the fact is, unless you actually lock your front gate, the government is entitled, and companies are entitled to come onto your land, even if the gate's closed or slightly ajar. No, you have to lock it. If it's not locked, they take that as an implicit acceptance of their terms that they can come on and launch mining exploration on your land. So much for sovereignty, so much for land rights, so much for the rule of property in this, society. So 82% of our land in New South Wales is subject to these licences currently. Now, people say, but that's funding all of these fancy festivals you're putting on, ladies. Shut up about it. Those people are mostly me. Yeah. But the fact is that 83% of the companies who own those mining licences are actually foreign owned. That money's not going here. I mean, I'm not a protectionist who thinks that we should only have Australian-run industries, but these are our natural resources that are being exploited. They're our future that's being damaged. And we're not ever going to see the benefit of that. So this campaign launched today. They have a really excellent website that I got those facts from. But how do you make people go to that website? That's the thing that you guys are good at. Much better than me. I mostly point at people like you. So I think I should probably wrap up because I know it's probably 10 o'clock now. I would really love to hear your ideas. We have a question time now, but I would prefer to just workshop campaigns for this. I would prefer to just talk about how we can make this sexy. This is what the Hunter Valley is going to look like. Does anyone here eat Sonoma bread? Sonoma, anyone? Sonoma? Yeah, no, they're in the wheat belt. They're not going to be able to grow there anymore. So, you know, our horse racing industries, I know, not without my sandwich. So we have to put things in terms us really selfish Sydney people care about. You know, yeah. It's not without my sandwich. You know, Hunter Valley's wine industry, our horse racing industry, which whatever you think about it is actually a huge contributor to the economy because we like to gamble. And so these are other industries that are going to be affected by this sort of change. There are whole communities that have had access to their community commons removed because of mining licenses, and there's a whole lot of changes going on to our property laws at the moment as well around that. So I know we're busy. I know you were coming here to get all uplifted. I'm sorry about that. You got a nice pastry. But the thing is, I want you to feel uplifted because you guys can actually change the world. And I know people say that you can't and that it's too hard and it's too expensive and I don't know how to do that. But you can. And I showed you a whole bunch of examples of individuals who just came up with silly, clever, quirky, fun, creative, playful, thoughtful campaigns that actually did that. And I'm really sure that between all of us here in this room, we can do the same for this campaign and for any number of the other things that we should be outrageously outraged about. Okay, thank you. Okay, now smile for Instagram. Okay. Hi, everybody, hi. Okay, wait, no. Revolution! Yeah, revolution. Now that's more like it. Thank you.